I think it's important to focus on the identity from a marketing perspective as well, and what does it mean. So we are tracking a lot of identity elements through interest, demographics, behavior, etc., which from an advertising standpoint sounds great. But I do think there's also a very important concern there in terms of privacy and ethics that needs to be addressed. And therefore, we, from NEO, find ourselves at a crossroads where a lot of institutions are coming to us saying, well, I want more effective ads, for example. Well, great. Now the question is, can we get to more effective ads without extracting so much value from the end user or potential student? And I think there's a very interesting environment out there and very like alternative solutions that can be explored. So I don't want to get too technical, but maybe rethinking some of the existing ways of communicating by, for example, using some techniques like zero knowledge advertising. I don't know how much we're familiar with this, but it's basically I'm not revealing the user's identity to third-party providers. What does that mean? That I can still get to you with an ad without extracting that data from that potential student and giving it to someone else so that they can also use that data. And so there are some actions that are already being undertaken. For example, Google, when they announced that they wanted to take their federated learning of cohorts initiative by 2022, well, they pushed it to 2023. What does that mean? That instead of targeting you as an ID, I would try and target you as a group of interests. So I would limit how much I focus on your personal identity and rather focus on the group to be more privacy preserving. There are other initiatives as well, like that initiative from Google shifted towards something called the Google Topics, which is now they are trying to access the top 5 topics per user per week, for example, and I'm going to deliver ads to you based on topics of interest. What about demographics? So that means that I'm actually removing the digital identity feature being driven by demographics and therefore focusing on interest. That's something that Google is exploring and wants to do. There's other browsers like the Brave browser, for example, which is actually preserving privacy, and in their configurations, everything is already said that ads are blocked. So that's an issue for advertisers. But at the same time, it enables you as a user to take determined action saying, well, I want or I don't want ads. And therefore, I can engage in some ads and I'll be receiving rewards and being paid by my attention being delivered there. And in exchange of my data, you give me something back. And therefore, maybe we can rethink about this, apply to educational marketing and say, well, it is still possible to target people based on their consent and therefore being privacy preserving and at the same time being accurate enough to actually reach the target. So hopefully we get to hopefully we get to see these initiatives more. Well, I think Jimmy brought a very interesting element, which is interoperability. So if we're talking about a digital identity and an international one and one across borders, is it one identity? Is it multiple identities? Is it online? Is it on site? And it's the sum of these different identities that will define the person's actions. And therefore, I think from a marketing perspective, we have to understand that it's no longer the person in the passport. It's also what is defined in the metaverse, for example, what is the avatar, the NFT profile picture, that also defines the digital student identity. And therefore, from a marketing standpoint, it's also more challenging on how we're going to be accessing either one or many identities at a time. There's one component, for example, for identification, because that's also an important one. We're logging in many platforms with our Facebook or Google login because that's faster, right? Or what you said, like, yeah, let's click here, consent, let's give consent to the cookies because I just want to get rid of that pop-up. You have no idea what you're doing while you accept that. And so all of that data from a marketing standpoint is vital, but at the same time, I think the in-between is what is it that I can access with my consent. So consent-based marketing. And therefore, it would be even more effective because I am actually, if I'm accepting to be somewhere or give my data, to whom and which kind of data. If I can decide on that, I think it would even be more targeted. And for the advertiser, it could be even better because, yes, I would have less quantity, but maybe more quality. And therefore, I think there's this kind of balance that we need to match. And we're on that quest.
Hi there, we have a question that's come in online. Can you give us some examples of how consent-based marketing is implemented in Africa, especially when it's deployed through agents?
Alejandra, you're the marketing expert. I'm going to throw you in the deep end there. How's your African knowledge?
Well, I don't think I can reply for Africa, but I can talk about consent-based marketing, yes. It would be interesting, actually, to have a deeper overview on how it is happening in Africa and especially in the agents market. But I think one of the most important elements in consent-based marketing, and Jody referred to it before, it's not only about when you give consent, but also when you opt out. And I think this is a crucial element that should be happening across borders. So whenever you implement consent-based marketing solutions, and this is already being implemented by some higher ed institutions in Europe, that is a fact. So I'm sorry, I don't know from the African standpoint with agents, but basically you can, again, opt in and define which levels of adoption you want. Do you want, for example, to opt in only in a specific browser, and therefore it's your history based on what you search in that platform that is going to define your identity? Or do you want to take it further and be tracked by whatever searches you do online? And therefore, it's like what's happening today. So it's the difference between the Web 2 and Web 3 worlds. It's a matter of ownership, maybe, that would define this this feature here is what kind of content I own, what kind of data I own versus what is owned by the platform. So in terms of consent-based marketing, I'm hoping for across all industries and across all borders as well, that these solutions enable a more trustworthy and ethical solution for both ends of the transaction, let's say.